Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Ben from Universal Audio, and welcome to the second LUNA office hours. And as you can tell, we are not streaming from our normal video studios here at Universal Audio. We, like most of you are, we're in lockdown and quarantine. So instead of our normal big flashy productions, we're doing these office hours from our home studios and our home offices. As you have no doubt already heard, if you're anywhere in the Universal Audio world, we have launched and LUNA is out. LUNA is here. The thing that we've all been waiting for months now is finally available. So if you have a Apollo Thunderbolt and you have a Mac computer, today's your day. Go to the downloads page. You can download the latest UAD drivers, download the LUNA app, and get up and running. In our first session, we kind of talked about the install process, and Connor walked us through the audio track creation protocol, how to get started kind of recording some tracks, and he did a good demo with some guitars and showed off some really cool features around warping and being able to move the timeline and be able to mix and match audio and tempo, and it's some really cool stuff. But, bearing the lead there, the best part is that it's all with just this, basically zero latency feel to any effect, any processing that you want that Apollo offers. So we're back here for our next office hour, and we're going to be doing these a bunch over the next week. We want to keep on hearing from you guys. Keep on chiming into the chat with your questions, and we're going to try to do our best to answer as many of those as we possibly can. And by we, what I really mean is I mean all my friends who are joining me here on this call. So, hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
What's going on, Ben?
Hey, Ben, how you doing?
Good.
Hello.
Heyo.
Hey, so we've got a few familiar faces here. You'll recognize to my left, we have Lev Perry. Where are you calling in from tonight, Lev?
Out here in Portland, Oregon.
Nice. So,
Good to see you.
Lev's our, what's your official title now?
Officially, I am the director of product.
Yeah. So you've been here for you helped bring the Apollo to life. You brought LUNA. This isn't just something we just thought of the other day, is it? This is something that's been in the works for years.
The day before that, yeah. No, I've been at UA for 10 years, and it's been a wild ride, and we've had a lot of fun. Some great products along the way, but yeah, LUNA really is the ultimate vision that we've dreamt about for years and years, and it's all coming together today. It's officially launched. So anybody who's watching this and doesn't know that we launched it, here we are. It's pretty exciting stuff, and lots of you are downloading it right now, so it's great to see.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's been cool seeing how the download counter just keeps on going up and up and up. And at the bottom of my screen, you'll notice a familiar face from our Tech Talk, and Connor Sexton. You were also featured in our first office hour.
Freudian slip there, Ben.
Right?
That's after.
Yep. Yeah. Connor Sexton here, senior product designer, working on software. Been working on LUNA for the past several years, and very excited to be here today sharing it with everybody. Thanks for watching.
Awesome. And then in the middle here, you're going to see a couple of people that you may not normally be used to seeing their faces. But Drew Mazurek, you're joining us from over on the East Coast still, yeah?
Yep. I'm in the broadcasting from my home studio in Maryland. And most people know me as Drew at UA. On the Facebook groups, I manage the forums and all that stuff, and just try and kind of take care of the community, make sure they get good information, and help them try and use our products as best I possibly can. So I'm happy to be here and share LUNA with everybody.
Awesome. And now over to my right, I've got Matt Peterson. Where are you calling in from?
Yeah, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, up in Northern California. I'm the technical content specialist for UA, so I work on all kinds of content, videos, articles, trade shows, all kinds of fun stuff.
Awesome. And you guys are going to no doubt recognize Matt's voice. If you've already logged into LUNA, you'll notice on the Create page, we've got a couple of helpful tutorials there. The LUNA Basics series, and that wonderful, sexy voice that you're going to hear there. That's all Matt's doing right there.
Yep, you'll be hearing a lot of my voice. Hopefully it's all useful content for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, do those walkthroughs and kind of the overview of the app. I think it's a perfect way for people to kind of get in there and start getting their hands dirty. But speaking of that, I know the first session we have tons and tons of questions. We've already, in the first couple of minutes here, I can see the chat's going nuts. Matt, are there a couple of the issues that we've been seeing multiple people have that we could kind of help them out with here real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of been watching the chat the past hour and the beginning here. I see a lot of people mention iLock accounts. So first off, the response to Luna has been huge. We actually didn't expect this much traffic, and it caused a little bit of hiccup on our side. But we since resolved the issue. So some of you may have had some hiccups linking your iLock account. If you fall into that category, go ahead and reboot your system and give it a try again. We made some changes on our side, and we confirmed with Pace that everything's working on their side again. So you should be able to link your account now. If you still can't, go ahead and try to contact customer support. They can get you sorted out.
Nice.
And the other thing that I saw people mentioning was they couldn't log in on the Luna splash page. If you're having that problem, go to uaudio.com, try to log into your account there. They should be the same, or they are the same credentials that you use to log into uaudio.com and Luna. So you may need to reset your password on uaudio.com. Then once you're able to get into uaudio.com, you can use the same exact username and password. You'll be able to get into Luna with that.
Nice.
And if you guys are still having problems, of course, since Luna just launched today, our support team is going to be pretty swamped. But you can go to docs.uaudio.com. That's going to take you straight into the Luna knowledge base. You can find all the content there. There's really, really tons of content.
And this is a new thing for us, right, Matt? This is the first time we're doing documentation online, right?
Yeah, exactly. We usually do a PDF that's just downloaded to your computer with the software. With Luna, since it's such a huge application and system, we did kind of a living document here. So docs.uaudio.com is constantly getting updated, constantly has the latest information that you're going to need. Unlike a manual where if something goes wrong, we can't really push information out right away to get it to you. We can do that with docs.uaudio.com. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
and I think the other big thing, sorry, Ben, is that it's searchable, right? So if you have a question about how something works, it's easy to just go into the search field at docs.uaudio.com or help.uaudio.com and just find what you're looking for. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And it's all tied into our knowledge base. So if you search in there and you can't find what you're looking for, the ability to submit a support ticket's right there as well. You don't have to go anywhere else.
Nice. Well, and a couple of the other cool things that Luna does that we haven't been able to do before is it can actually update without you having to go back and download the full DMG file. So as we continue to add bug fix and add updates, those will all just happen in the app, which I can, as a beta tester, I've noted we've had a good, really good cadence of getting new things and bug fixes throughout the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, totally. That's certainly the plan for just ongoing as well. We've got a feedback mechanism inside of the app. So any suggestions, any feature requests, any issues that people are having, they can feedback to us. And yeah, we plan to have regular software updates as they're needed. So
nice.
Yeah.
Exciting.
That top right corner of the app feedback button, you'll see it there at any time you're in the app. We're already monitoring that, already starting to categorize and collate, and it's going to be a huge driver of the things that we consider the next most important to do. Nice.
Well, awesome. So now that we got all the fun technical stuff out of the way, let's get into the boring stuff of music. Just kidding. So what we'd love to kind of show you guys in this office hour session is kind of diving into some of the Luna instruments and some of the MIDI capabilities inside of Luna. Like I mentioned in our first office hour, we did a bunch of guitar and kind of audio focused tools and recording. So I think this would be a really cool to show people what Luna can do when it comes to MIDI instruments. And especially the new Luna instruments, which are just amazing sounding tools. So Lev, would you mind kind of taking over the screen and showing people what we're working with?
Totally. So a lot like what Connor showed in the last hour, I just wanted to sort of maybe give you a view of what it might look like for you when you're starting out. So this is an empty Luna session, but there is a little highlighted area here in the top left that sort of suggests that you can make a new track. And so I'm going to take you quickly through the idea of how you can make a new track. So I just switched this over to instrument. And you could name this here. Let's say I was going to call this drums, because I'm gonna. You can also go through and choose which instrument you're going to start with. And if you click here, you'll actually get a long list. And as some of the questions on the forums have been coming up, we've been seeing over and over again, can you use your favorite third-party instruments in Luna? The answer is absolutely yes. So you can see I've got a long list of things from NI. I've got the new Reason Rack plugin. I've got all sorts of fun things in here. But right here at the top, you can sort of see our new Luna instruments. So I've got Shape, Minimoog, and Ravel. I'm going to go ahead and make all three. There's a quick way to do that. If you hit Shift+Command+N, I can add sort of another module here, and I can easily go through and do that. So I'm going to make a Minimoog here, Let's call that the bass. And I'll do Shift+Command+N one more time, instrument, and I'm going to make a Ravel here, and I'll call this piano. So easy enough to do that. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And I think this is kind of the main point, is that with this new track dialog, it's really easy to just get kind of a quick going of like sort of laying out your session, how you're going to want it to be. Of course, you can do this at any time, and you can place, your cursor right here at any point in the session, go into that new track dialog, and it will insert it right after where your selection is. So that's the new tracks dialog. And as I was talking about, we've got now 3 of these instruments here. I've got the drums, the bass, and the piano, just as we had set it up. And what's really cool is anytime that you focus a track here, you're getting this focus channel here. You can see sort of the duplicate name down here. I've got the drums. To make that really clear, maybe I'll just quickly go through and color code these tracks, right? Because everyone loves these hot colors.
I heard that. I heard people in the chat were screaming for Connor to start coloring his tracks in the last demo.
Yeah, we have sort of the default color scheme as sort of per track type. So, this is definitely one of the first things I do. I think, color coding in general is a really powerful way to get into music creation. And that's definitely a lot of what I'm going to show you here. Another thing I might do just to configure my session, I'm going to click on this little timeline settings thing. And I'm going to show the markers ruler. And you can see I've already got some markers in here. So I'm going to go and delete those. But you get the idea. It's easy enough to sort of configure the session however you like. Nice. I'm going to go through and zoom out here. Maybe delete some of those guys. All right, so now I'm kind of starting fresh. This is exactly what you would see. But this is the idea that really easy. I've now got these 3 tracks. It would be easy enough for me just to start, using, I've got my MIDI controller down here. Can't see it on the screen, but any MIDI controller, keyboard, pad, etc. You can plug in, and it's just automatically, seen by Luna. You can easily route this. It routes by default to any instrument. But this focus channel is really great because, again, I can just click on the drums, and you can see at the very top, I've got shape listed here, and I can click on it. And what's cool is this whole focus channel is a mirror of the mixer. So just to show you that really quick, on the top left here, I've got this mixer view. And in one window, I'm able to go between these 2 views. They're the same tracks. It's always 1-to-1 between what you see in the edit and mixer views, the timeline and the mixer views. And so, just really easy to see that. And of course, here's that same shape instrument. And again, this whole channel strip is also scrollable here. But again, we're getting a nice little chunk of that in the edit window. So where would I want to begin? I mean, I think there's a couple of things that, like I said, people would want to just kind of get going with quickly here. But you heard it first. Like I just sort of selected the track and I started playing, and I'm hearing this piano. We actually have 3 instruments that I want to talk about. This first one is Shape, which is this, full featured sort of workstation like environment where you've got the ability to layer sounds, add UA effects, do some really cool sound design. But also really it's starting from a place where it already sounds like album quality results on the first patch that you load. You don't have to do a lot of work. So that's Shape. And again, I'll cover that more in detail in a moment. The second instrument I want to talk to you about is the Moog, Minimoog. This is the iconic Minimoog Model D in every detail, fully physically modeled by Universal Audio. And so this is the one that we've been working on the longest. This was the one we started with, sort of, backstage talking to you guys about where we started. This was always the vision. This was like, we're gonna come out with this whole crazy recording system, and then there's going to be a Minimoog synthesizer. So anyway, for me, it's very exciting.
Well, I know instruments have been, we've done the UAD survey every year for God knows how long, and every year instruments are like top of the requests.
Not only have instruments been the #1 sort of plug-in type that we should do for many years now, this was the #1 instrument. So this, back to Connor's point about the feedback, we've got this feedback button up here. It spawns this web window. This goes right to our database so that we can look at the feature requests. And so again, this is a great example of something where we really are listening. We want your feedback. What instruments do you want next? What Luna extensions do you want next? What features in Luna do you want? I think even after just not even a full day, we're already getting a really good sense. And so, help us out. Give us some feedback. That would be great. Nice. So that's the Minimoog. I'll cover that in some more detail. And then the third instrument that I will talk about is Ravel. Now, Ravel is what it looks like. It's a grand piano. It's modeled after a Steinway Model B. And this instrument is really fascinating because it sort of takes all of these great technologies that either Universal Audio has had and some that we've never had, and puts them into this fantastic instrument. So the new stuff is around, multi-sample, multi-layer scripting, some really heavyweight things going on just to make it sound really natural and really realistic. But unlike most software pianos, this thing actually has a full physical model of the cabinet, the soundboard, and so it actually resonates like a real piano. So this is Ravel. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But let's go back to shape. And I think, you already heard me just kind of noodle around on my keyboard, and I should disclaim for anybody watching me live play keyboards, I'm sorry, and you're welcome. But it should never be done in public, but these are extraordinary times. But right out of the gate, we're actually seeing this first patch that's loaded with shape is called Ravel LT. And that's because it's the same sample set from Ravel. There's less layers and articulations, but generally speaking, if you're just looking for a great piano sound to fit into almost any genre of music, this is an amazing starting point. You can, of course, add other types of effects and do things to, sweeten it, darken it, whatever it is you're looking to do. But the fact that this is in here to start is great. But if you wanted to start maybe with more of a, traditional starting place, maybe an electronic music or something like that, a lot of people start with drums. And so there's a couple of ways that you can start browsing for patches. So the way that I like to do it is click on the presets browser over here. You can see on the sidebar over here, it opens up this browser. If you're not seeing this browser in Luna, maybe it's because the tracks browser is closed. But even if the tracks browser is closed, it sort of contextually takes over, and it gives us this focus browser on the left to be able to see, in this case, the presets for shape. Now, shape ships with hundreds and hundreds of patches, so it's really maybe daunting to just scroll through the list, but that's why every focus browser has contextual search. So really easy to say, look for drums. I'll just type in DRUMS, and now you can see it's a very manageable list, easy enough for me to go through here. Whoops, let's see, wrong focus track. There we go. So now you can see I've got drums, and if I say, that kit's cool, but I want another one. It's an 80s dance party up in here.
Yep, real fast.
It's 7 p.m. here on the West Coast, but for those of you on the East Coast, you're welcome. So this is, a great starting place where maybe I could play this in. Again, I'm not going to subject you to that. But let's talk about how we can get MIDI into the system. I could, like Connor's demo showed with audio, record MIDI just as easily by hitting the record button and just laying that in. There's all sorts of quantized features and things like that. Another way to go might be to just pull in some MIDI files. So I've got one on my desktop here. I'm going to drag and drop that in. It's even smart enough to say, oh, well, there's a different tempo map here than what's in your session. Let's use that. That's cool. And yeah, I can easily just drag and drop this around to different areas on the timeline. And yeah, now I've got this drum beat. Now let me turn this down, make sure I'm not blowing you guys out here. You got me there, Ben?
Yep, with lots of click.
All right. Right off the bat, you can hear, let me turn off the click, thanks. Right off the bat, you can hear that there's a problem. That kind of sound isn't the best one. Now, really easy to just use the key on the side here to sort of select all the notes. And I'm going to use the up-down arrow to sort of put it on the right instrument. So I just moved that sort of stick sound of the snare sound. I like that kick sound, but this is all sorts of wrong. We don't want that tom sound. We want it on the hi-hat sound. So no, again, really easy to just take in, different MIDI performances and just kind of move them around. Mm-hmm. And if we get in here, again, this is the most basic kind of MIDI editing that I could possibly do, but it's really easy to lasso notes and take these guys. Maybe I want to make them shorter. Maybe I want to just trim out one note. You just go to different areas of the MIDI note to sort of start that editing process. It's all contextual. You don't have to change tools or anything like that. So if I sort of hover in the middle here, I get a grabber and I can move this. If I go to the end, I get a trimmer. I can trim it, move it out. And this will, of course, with chromatic material, change the length of the notes. I can also do things like hold down the Option key and start dragging, and I can start copying notes really simply. And I can do this with a range of notes if I wanted to. So again, really easy to just sort of start this whole process of getting in there, editing MIDI. And I think, we've looked at all the different sort of workflows that are out there and tried to make this as intuitive as possible. Just kind of what you see is what you get. There's not a lot of mystery about, I wonder how I would move this thing around. Well, it's like you click on it, you kind of explore a little, and you kind of get your bearings.
And Lev, I guess you did that as a drag and drop, but you could also do we have a Command I, which is just a generic import, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So easy enough to just go and import files, drag and drop files. Of course, if I was braver than I am, I would record some stuff in. So I think that's kind of the point, is that there's a bunch of ways to get MIDI into the system. We're going to cover, I think, in a different video, the workflow of importing AIFF files, which is a way to export from another piece of recording software into ours. And you can also do that along with a MIDI export. And when you bring in the MIDI export, it'll even bring in the multi-track MIDI performances, as well as other things like markers if the the export from the third-party DAW supports that. So there's all sorts of ways to get MIDI in. It's pretty cool. And just to kind of give you the last bit of just kind of handling, because there's so much MIDI editing to talk about, there's all sorts of ways to not only, like I said, sort of select multiple notes and kind of have them be manipulated, but one of the things I think is kind of unique about our system here is I don't have to leave this notes view in order to move the clip around. You just go to this header up there, and it's easy enough to option drag. I can just select these two guys, duplicate them. So now I've got 4 bars of music, and that was pretty quick to do. And again, all the while, without changing modes, I can easily go through and add other things into it. So starting to build up this drum beat in, like no time at all. Of course, I'm talking about it, so it's going slower. That's sort of the idea, that it'd be fast and it'd be very much like what you'd be used to if you're editing audio. So if I bring in some audio here, you're seeing that same kind of workflow where I'm able to go through and just kind of bring this in here. This is a common issue where, I brought in this MIDI file. It was at 115 BPM, and I've got this this clip here that's at 120. So it's easy enough to hold down Control and just click on the edge and stretch that out. Didn't have to change tools. There's just a little bit of a modifier there. But now this stuff is all going to be nicely in time.
Nice. That's nice looking.
So just getting started quickly with loops, getting started with MIDI. I think these are sort of the hallmarks of how, I would start a song where I've got some inspiration. I might have anything from sort of a prefab loop like this, or even some field recorded audio. I do a lot of that. I think that's the kind of stuff where it's just super easy to get into it and start being creative. And that was the whole idea. And if you're really wanting to get deep into the MIDI side of things, of course we have a full-fledged CC and velocity editor. So I got there by clicking on this little stalk here at the top of any given MIDI clip. And it's easy to just open that up, and we're seeing velocity, and I can easily go through and draw this in. Doing this kind of a move might be kind of a nightmare because it's like on every single MIDI note, including the kick and the snare. Maybe more likely, again, I would want to just select the hi-hats. And then now I can go through and actually do some more advanced sort of things with the hi-hat. And now you're going to hear a little bit more variance, as opposed to this. You can hear that hi-hat. It's just a little bit more boring. So let's make it a little more exciting.
That's a fat beat.
That's how we roll. So
nice.
MIDI piano roll. Sorry.
Right. Well, and it's cool too. I mean, the we talked about this a little bit earlier too, but the whole point is it's contextual. Everything that it's doing, it's kind of anticipating what it is that you would want to do and just putting the right things up in front of you, and or it's as simple as clicking on it as opposed to having to like double click on it, open up another window, make your changes, then go back and listen. There's no toggling between multiple windows to accomplish anything in Luna.
Absolutely. And we've tried to make it so that, even when you're doing advanced things, like let's say that I played some of these notes in, let me just quickly select them. And let's say they were just like slightly off the grid, and I can defeat the grid by holding down the command key, and it will, temporarily suspend the snapping. But if I decided, I want to come in here, and you can see that these guys are slightly off here. Of course, if I could grab these the correct way, there we go. So if these guys were over there and I wanted to quantize it, it would be easy just to select the clip, hit this Q button, and it brings up a little quantize browser. So you're not going through a menu. You're saying, like you said, Ben, a contextual quantize button right off the clip. And I could easily say, let's just put that where it needs to be. And it's sort of back in time here. Nice. And you put it away. You don't need to go diving for menus, although of course we have plenty of stuff in the menus if you want to find it there. Which
you really love menus.
You can easily go and hit the help button and search in. I like to do that when I'm trying to find a command I can't remember, but everything in the GUI is just really up at the top level or very easy to sort of drill down. And, we're also trying to hide complexity when it's not necessary. So, this default view for velocity is another good example where by most people's standards, this is what they're trying to get to most of the time, just to kind of make MIDI come to life and feel more natural. But we have the full set of CCs and controllers for, any kind of standard MIDI device. So if you really wanted to make sure, can I use Luna to control my external synthesizers or other MIDI gear? The answer is yes. And again, what's really nice about these browsers on the side, let's say that I knew I was looking for sustain. I can just type in SUS, and there is the sustain already filtered down for me. So I could go and find that. Obviously, I don't need sustain with a drum kit, but you get the idea. All of these different parameters and things with MIDI are just super intuitive to find, especially once you learn it. It's just, you can fly through it. And I think that's what's pretty special about the way it's integrated. And the last thing I'll say about the way it's integrated before I get back to some of the instruments is you're seeing, I think what is a really powerful way to view the MIDI information, which is right next to the audio. So as I sort of zoom in on the audio and the MIDI, you can sort of see these things in context. You can see they're like right on the grid. And that's a really important feature for people when they're trying to make sure that their MIDI environment and their audio environment are one environment. And that was, again, the other big inspiration of how we can manipulate MIDI here. One of the last things I'll say, if you're doing drums, there's a great kind of semi-hidden but sort of visual feature here called Fold. And Fold is sort of our drum editor kind of workflow where I hit that button and it basically looks for all the notes that are on this performance and it just filters down the lanes by just those notes. So now it would be easy to say, oh, I missed a hi-hat there, or I want this extra little bit of percussion. So it's easy to just kind of do that. And I think it's, again, it kind of gets the mess out of the way. You don't have to scroll up and down.
Yeah, it's like a built-in drum editor, kind of like it compacts drum kits. I love that.
Yeah, and it works again with everything we showed with the velocity editor. So again, really easy to just click on F2, and I'm right back into just editing the hi-hats or whatever it is that I'm editing. So
nice.
Yeah, very, very cool. Very easy to sort of get around and manipulate the interface to make it exactly what you want. And yeah, there's a little scroll bar here where you can sort of zoom in and out on the edges, move up and down. Very, very responsive, manipulatable UI. So pretty cool.
Nice.
One other that would be great to show is on the point of familiar concepts and paradigms and things just working as you'd expect. The way that MIDI clips are trimmed and playback content is just like audio, where the beginning and end determines the beginning of and end of the content. So it's a really intuitive way to work with blocks of MIDI, is that the clips themselves determine where notes begin and end.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And you're seeing me do, like with the example of trim, the bottom right of any kind of clip is going to be a trim move. And of course, it's all non-destructive, so you're never really losing anything. You can see I might have clipped off this hi-hat. There's some other really cool things I think that people will be stoked about if you're a little bit deeper into the MIDI. And again, bad example on drums, but I'll show it anyway. Let's say I've got a long note here, and I decide, just like Connor was saying, if I was going to separate the clip right here, I'm going to use the B key. And now I've separated that clip. It's also separated the MIDI note. This is a brand new separate MIDI note. So nice. That's something that doesn't happen in a lot of other workstations where you're trying to just, what you see is what you get in terms of MIDI editing, and we've done that. Another example that's kind of cool, I just set up this little clip here. Let's say that you had a clip that wasn't quite a bar, but you still wanted to duplicate it. We've got some other cool things where you can extend that selection up here in the ruler and then easily duplicate that. That's another thing that's just really fast and kind of intuitive. It's, again, maybe one of those things that you might not think of right away, but once you learn, this is the kind of thing that helps just kind of, keep things in the flow. And that works down at the MIDI selection as well. So I can extend that selection out. And then when I hit duplicate, it'll duplicate at the end of this duplication. So there's, again, instead of it being like, oh, how do I do this? There's probably an intuitive, single click action out there. And for anything that we couldn't fit under single click, it's usually the most common modifiers, command or control, depends. But, nice. Again, like you said, that was the idea, to keep it very familiar, very intuitive. And, the exploration of this app is, I think people are going to find there's more than maybe they would have expected for a 1.0, because we put a lot of thought into the editing model for both audio and MIDI.
Nice. Well, there's people screaming in the chat, like shouting, Moog, Moog, Moog.
All right.
Yeah, there's a chant.
All right. Well, let me get to the Moog. So let's talk about it.
Let's before we talk about it, can we just hear it?
Yeah, why not? All right. So let me bring up the bass here. There's our Minimoog. Let me go an octave up here. Maybe another one. All right. So we've got the Minimoog up in here, just like we talked about with Shape. You'd hit the presets button here to kind of get started. And there are just tons and tons of presets in here. So again, let's start with some leads. Now, one of the cool things, again, horrible keyboard player, you're welcome. But I think, just to kind of get in that creative flow, easy enough to kind of have a riff here. And you're kind of going through these patches. One of the things that I like to do, because I am such a horrible keyboard player, is utilize one of our new MIDI effects. It's a new extension called ARP, and it's an arpeggiator that just allows you to sort of, get in this kind of creative flow very simply. This will work with any instrument, not just the Minimoog, not just Shape, but any external synthesizer or audio unit as well. And so again, maybe we'll start with that amazing chord I was holding down. And instead of me having to hold that down, I'll just latch it and we'll go through some patches and we'll do some listening. I'll tweak out some of the interface. You guys can really hear this thing.
Hell yeah.
All right. All right. You get the idea.
Yeah, dude.
Sounded great, Lev.
Yeah,
That's
There's a
called. That's Saturday night at Lev's.
Yeah, you should see the Euro rack set up to the side. But that's truly one of the things I think is amazing about this. This doesn't sound like any other virtual instrument I've ever heard. This sounds like analog. And I think, you know, I can tell you, I've got analog oscillators to the side of me, and this thing just doesn't have the same problems that a lot of VIs have when it talks about aliasing or distortion kind of being generic. You guys saw me kind of crank up this external volume input, and this is a very special part of the model where you turn on this switch, you turn up this knob, you start to see this overload kind of, you know, going crazy. And what it's actually modeling is something that happens on the real hardware, where you actually route the output of the headphones of the hardware back into itself. You can process it through some of these amplifiers, and it just has this crazy non-linear sound where it just really is like, it's like uncontrollable, but you heard it. It kind of added ghost notes or like undertones that were just really wild. And I've been using the crap out of this in terms of just when I want something that's just off the wall, you know, that with a little bit of a tweak of some of the ADSs and the filter, you just end up with all of this amazing stuff. All of this stuff can be automated. And we also have MIDI CC for all of this stuff. So in the manual, you'll be able to find out what MIDI CCs correspond to what parameters. And so if you have a MIDI controller with some knobs, the Minimoog lets you control all that externally. There's going to be some other great sound demos on our website. Again, people who are much better at playing keyboards than I am. I'm more of a tweaker, less of a player. So,
but
man, yeah,
it's such a good sound, and like this is one of the most classic analog synths, and it's been such a classic because it's seemingly simple, right? This doesn't look like a ton of stuff happening all at once, but like the sonic possibilities that you can actually get out of it are insane.
It is. And I think, you know, anyone who's familiar with this, because let's face it, there's tons of different, you know, software and hardware emulations of this thing out there in the world. It's, like you said, one of the most popular, if not the most iconic synthesizer ever made. It really changed the face of pop music, funk music. So many different genres relied on this thing for not just bass sounds, but lead sounds, weird ethereal pads, sound design. It does so much. But one of the other things that we did that I think is really special is went really deep on sort of what we're calling the hardware mods. Now, these didn't just come out of nowhere. These were things that people would actually do to the hardware to sort of, you know, extend the functionality. And we've put a lot of that in with regards to, you know, extra LFOs and modulation, being able to actually track differently with regards to legato and retriggering, triggering the lowest note versus the last note. I personally prefer the last note. You know, the Minimoog had this quirk about how it would retrigger notes based on the lowest note, but not the highest. And so we've added a sort of a digital only feature here to give you sort of the functionality that you might want with something like this. And we've also done some other amazing stuff. I think this is one of the more exciting things where you're able to sort of tweak out the velocity where you couldn't really do that with the original Minimoog, but you can go through and tweak out using velocity on your keyboard to kind of adjust the filters and do other types of things like that. So there's just all sorts of cool things. You know, everything about what I've just shown you here is available to download and demo in Luna. This is definitely one of the premium instruments. You know, there's been a lot of questions about what's free and what's not free. This is, again, one of our premium things. We've been working on this almost about as long as Luna, believe it or not.
Wow.
And so we think it's worth it. I hope you guys agree. Definitely check it out. you can download a 14-day demo, fully functional. Use it in your tracks right now in Luna.
Sounds awesome.
Nice. Yeah, awesome. And the AIFF session that we'll get to here in a little bit, like this would actually be, we're going to send you guys home from this stream with a Luna session, or actually an AIFF that you can turn into a Luna session that's perfect for trying out both the Minimoog and also Ravel. And like Lev mentioned, we've got a lot of great sound examples. Some of you guys may have seen my video with Dave LeBolt, where we kind of did a tour through a lot of the shape sounds, through some of the Ravel sounds. If you check out the Luna page on uaudio.com, you'll notice there's some whole new examples for both Ravel and Minimoog that just sound absolutely stunning. So it's one thing to hear, a professional keyboard player play it, but it's also another thing to kind of actually have it up inside of Luna and be able to tweak the knobs and really experience what it's doing for yourself. I know I've really, really enjoyed getting in there and getting my hands dirty with the Minimoog.
Yeah, it's huge.
One thing completely accentuates this too, I'm sure we'll cover in subsequent videos, is just streams, is this synth combined with the tape emulation and the Neve summing is just like so good. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's magic.
It's
feel
so
like trying to be like, understated and like just plain about it, but it's so much fun because it sounds so good and it's so inspiring. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice.
So yeah, I mean, just to show that, I think there's definitely a lot there that I could unpack, but I think Connor said it correctly. It's like there's starting out and sort of getting the sounds, and I think I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that if you drop into record on this thing, we have this mode in Luna called ARM, which is accelerated real-time monitoring, and what it does is it actually routes the native VI out into the DSP environment. And what that allows you to do is easily go through and say, okay, I've got my Minimoog. Let's put something, I don't know, something crazy like my favorite reverb, put the capital on there. And this is an example of, in a higher latency environment where you might have a lot of delay. So in this kind of case, let me zoom down here.
And Lev, just for people who are familiar with console and their current DAW workflow, this was possible, but it involved virtual channels and required some setup. And with Luna, this is all just automatic.
That's right. So this gets routed through the DSP. And again, you've just got this ability to route through this world. And you can sort of see, I've got this special dot around the record. You can see the mode is enabled up here in the main toolbar. And you've got this orange indicator here kind of telling you that it's been routed through the DSP. So again, you're able to go through this and route through plugins in real time, and you get this great sort of workflow. So I think those are the types of things that kind of make the system very special, very, very playable. And then, like Connor said, if I were to come out of record, let me turn down the wet dry on this because it'll be a little wacky. Let me get some better sound here. I think I nuked myself out. I'm like, what? I make muted music, people. I don't know. Don't ask me to explain. Let me turn off the arpeggiator too, just for the original. And let's find a better patch. This is real stuff. This is how it actually happens.
This is happening in real time.
So here's another good example. Maybe this is too low, right? I'm not feeling the octave that this bass is in. Real common problem. I'm just going to go ahead and select all these notes. And I'm going to hold Shift and the up arrow, and that just transposes it up an octave. So that sounds better already. So really easy to just kind of go through and manipulate. I'm just flying between the MIDI. I'm flying between U80 plugins. I'm flying between the Luna instruments. These are all things that are just helping me get into that workflow. And then, like Connor said as well, just trying to get to that point.
Let's hear it with that fat beat, Lev. Let's hear it
you,
together.
All right, hold on. This is gonna be. this is like, again, who knows what this will sound like?
Yeah.
It's Miami Vice, dude.
All right.
It really is.
It's Friday night, dudes. I don't care. All right.
It's
but
Tuesday,
yeah,
but
I just added.
Same difference.
I just added the Studer here, and this is the Studer A800. Now, if you are a U82 user, an Apollo user, and you have this plugin, this is actually going to be free for you as the Luna extension. But we've gone way beyond what the original plugin does. Let me just quickly hold down the Option key and put it on everything. Every audio and instrument track can have the tape extensions, and I've just put what's called the B Studer 800. And what the B means is we've got this little browser over here that's showing us I've got 4 virtual tape decks. And this virtual tape deck for this particular model is all linked across these channels. And of course, if I decide, oh no, I want the bass to have sort of its own sound from the drums or any kind of creative decision you want to make, let's go ahead and put the Oxide in there. Oxide is actually free. This is included with Luna just by downloading it. Now, we still have the U82 plugin that's on our website. It's on sale right now, by the way. Wink, wink. No, but the point is you don't have to pay for this, right? You get Luna, you get this version of Oxide. And what's cool about Oxide as compared to the Studer has all of the sort of deep controls that you're used to from the plugin, including kind of opening up the hood and getting tweaky with it. And so again, you can really achieve any and everything you might expect. Let me close this down and kind of show you just quickly, like.
Can you turn that main back up?
Oh, sorry, got it.
Yeah, I got super low for it.
I was more just trying to show that I can tweak all this stuff out in real time. You see the transport moving. You see all the different tape reels being swapped out. And what this is doing is for every machine or every channel on machine B, it's tweaking it out globally. But you still have the ability with the Studer to go through, tweak out saturation. There's kind of a more button over here. You can go into the individual high frequency and bias controls. On the Oxide, however, it's actually much more simple. And it's sort of like a greatest hits for tape where you might just click on Oxide and very easily, let's go ahead and solo this up. You can go through and just run through presets. There's not a lot of controls. Therefore, it's kind of hard to mess up, or it's easy to mess up if you go for the distortion, which I think is cool. So let's listen to that really quick. Kind of a clean sound. There's a default setting. A little bit louder, obviously, but a little bit more harmonics too. Now let's go to some of the dirtier presets. So you can hear they're subtle, but I'm getting more high frequency content. I'm getting a little bit more low end tilt. There's a lot that goes on inside of a tape machine. It's all modeled here in Oxide, and it's completely free and included. And like Connor said, you just add this to any virtual instrument, really anything, and you're just going to get a whole different vibe to it. You can easily go through and kind of give it, again, a little bit more or less saturation, and you're just getting that sound of tape right inside the system. And again, if you want to go further with that, the Studer 800 gives you every single control you might have on a real tape machine on every channel if you want it. And again, if you don't want to tweak out every channel, really easy to, as I showed, just assign it to everything, click on the main thing, go to the browser, maybe bring up a preset. There's tons of presets in here that just allow you to get a great starting place. Things for vocals, things for drums, things for guitars. You can just do so much with it. It's really fun.
Well, I found that like, sorry, Ben. I was just gonna say, I found that like when you loading up sessions, if you bring in something like Ben's gonna show us how to do an AIFF file, if you bring in some WAV files, and if you just put tape on everything and you set up your buses and turn Neve summing on, you got easily 20% less mixing to do. So I think users are going to find that they're using less plugins in Luna than they are in their current DAW.
That's actually exactly what I was about to say. Of like, there's been so many times where like I'm like, man, this just needs a little bit more bottom, I want a little saturation, some harmony. Oh yeah, wait a second, I've got I can just load a tape machine on it, and it does like 90% of that work for me.
Yep,
totally. I got the main bus here. I added Neve summing to it, and that in this case affects everything through it. Of course, if you make a bus over here, I got some key commands to do that. You can make those straight away with Neve summing built in, and you can easily start to build these things up. And this could be for submixes or send return like reverb delay type buses, kind of whatever you want. But definitely there's a lot of magic that goes on with just these two extensions. It'll get you like 50% of the way there, maybe even more depending on what you're doing.
That's awesome.
And I think this is another example of something that is an upgrade that you can check out. There's a demo of this, but we definitely encourage people to just check it out, see what you think. I think it'll make a huge difference on your tracks, because certainly on mine, it's like you said, I'm not doing as much heavy lifting because it's all built in here, and I'm not thinking about which plugin should I put here. It's like, well, it's all kind of built in. It's all very quick to access, and it makes making music really fun. Yeah,
absolutely. Nice. Well, so yeah, Lev, this was really cool too. We're kind of showing off some of the MIDI capabilities. I think it'd be great for this little last bit. I'd love to kind of show people how to use the AIFF file, and then, like I said, we can actually provide people a file to start downloading and start test driving some of the stuff that we're showing off here. And then when it comes to listening to Ravel and Shape, I know seeing all the comments, you guys would love to just hear more and more sounds. I highly suggest going to uaudio.com/Luna because on that page, you're going to find a bunch of examples and just kind of more information about each one of these instruments that are.
And if they haven't seen your video, Ben, with Dave, that's also worth checking out. That's you can seeing him in action. That's awesome too.
Oh,
yeah, if you want to hear a good keyboard player as opposed to me, that's where you should go.
Well, and we're planning on bringing Dave on for an office hour, if not tomorrow, possibly Thursday or Friday. And so yeah, we'll have Dave on, and I'm gonna tell him he's not even allowed to talk. All he can do is play the keys nonstop for us.
I prefer talking to playing, so thanks.
You're welcome. Great. Well, yeah. So let me just take you guys on a tour through with my screen, and what I'm going to show you is here inside of Luna. This is for everybody that is working with files coming out of another DAW. So whether you're coming out of Pro Tools, Logic, does Ableton also support AIFF? I can't remember.
No, unfortunately not.
No. All right. So Pro Tools, Logic, Cubase, Nuendo, the ones that do support it. It's a very, very easy workflow. And again, we'll post up a link here in the chat to the zip file for this AIFF file, along with the audio and MIDI. So that way you guys can try this out. And if any of you were lucky enough to come see us at NAMM, if you got to do the hands-on demo, you'll recognize this session really quick. Here I've got Luna pulled up. This is the easiest process possible. Click on the AIFF button, select your AIFF file, hit open. If you want to add MIDI to it, which in this case we definitely do, select your MIDI file, press open. It's automatically...
Ben, what's that bring in? When you add the MIDI file, what's that give you?
It's going to bring in the tempo. It's going to bring in any of the MIDI tracks that are in that MIDI file, and it can also bring in markers if they were exported in there.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah, I think not all DAWs support the marker export, but for any that do, yeah, they get brought right in. So yeah.
You just hit create. It counts up from 0 to 100. And then you are left with MIDI tracks and audio tracks kind of all ready to go. So on the MIDI tracks, it won't bring in, the big thing to remember about AIFF files is it is just audio and MIDI. It's just track data. So things like automation and inserts and clip gain, a lot of those things don't carry over. So if you've got some stuff, say you're working on a mix in Pro Tools and you want to commit to, say, a guitar sound, you're going to want to commit that file before you do an AIFF export. But this is a great way to pull up. It's got a clearly labeled couple of tracks here. One says piano, so there's a very obvious candidate for what I'm going to insert on that track. And then there's also a lead synth melody, which is also just kind of begging for a very particular Moog sound. And both of these should work just kind of out of the box. You can press play and you've got music to play with.
We're on left.
Everybody can hear mine though. Just want you guys. So it's just a quick little preview. As you saw, I pulled up Ravel. I'm obsessed with this reverse mix and reverse length, being able to add that weird reverse delay thing to it. And then with the Moog, you can go in here, you can pull up presets. This is kind of like a lead synth melody, so you can get in there and really tweak with it. But what I love about this session is that you can just come in here and do just like what Lev was showing you guys. Insert tape across all of the channels. Try out the Neve summing, and this is the thing I've been doing a lot inside of Luna is really trying to learn what the sound of each of these does. Learn about what sonically the summing has to offer and what the tape has to offer, because the faster that you learn those things, the more that you're gonna have control over how much or how little of these effects you want to apply, and you can start becoming, at least for me, like I've become pickier about. I want to use just the Neve summing just for like the bass, but leave the drums with just the tape, and maybe duplicating it. There's so many cool possibilities for how you treat all these different effects and the different instruments. So yeah, that's. I wish this was a longer segment, but that's how easy importing an AIFF file into Luna is. So this zip file that I just showed you guys, again, we'll post that link up so that way you guys can check it out for yourselves. But yeah, that's the end of my AAF segment. We got any questions coming in from the chat that you guys want to touch on before we wrap up?
Seen a lot of people asking about key commands as we've been going through this and using them. If you have Luna, if you go to the help tab at the top and then key commands, it'll open a PDF where you can see all the key commands there.
Yeah. And one of the segments I have planned for when, tomorrow, possibly maybe the next day, is a little like top 10, top 15 key commands that probably every user is going to want to get to know right away. So we got lots more coming. So
nice. Awesome. Well, great guys. And yeah, keep on. We'll be back again tomorrow. We've got an early session for our European and East Coasters or people on the West Coast who just like to wake up early, like myself. And then we're back again at 11 and 2 and again at 4:30 tomorrow with Fab showing off a mix session. So we're here for you guys. Keep on asking questions. We hope you guys are downloading and checking out Luna, giving it a test drive, and show up tomorrow with some more questions or success. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun seeing everybody respond so positively so far to Luna. Nice. Awesome, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll be back here tomorrow to see you then. All right. Later, guys.
So much.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.